name's Zoe with Sterling Organic Farm, and I've been farming here for about 2 years now. We grow everything organic, so no synthetic herbicides or pesticides, and this is an unheated greenhouse. Even though it's very cold in January, coldest month of the year, there are actually a lot of vegetables that will survive in here through the winter. And on cloudy days like today, we put this fabric over them. It's called row cover, and it's like a blanket. It helps keep them warm. It lets 80% of the light in. On sunny days, we'll take it off. And this is red Russian kale. It's a very cold hardy variety of kale. It can take the cold. You don't see it in the supermarkets that much because it wilts pretty easily after you cut it, so you really have to eat it fresh. It doesn't ship well, so it's a nice green to have from your local farm. And eating fresh vegetables in the winter, it's really important. Helps keep your immunity up, keep you healthy, and most people don't eat enough vegetables. And the nice thing about having vegetables fresh from the greenhouse instead of shipped in from somewhere warmer is they're really fresh and delicious. So I'll put this row cover back on to keep them warm. Here we have a kale plant that has a pretty significant aphid problem. They're really small, but they're these gray things on the kale plant. They've been sucking the sap out of the kale plant and making it shrivel up. And so for pest control, usually if it's a minor problem, like here I consider it minor because it's just affecting 1 or 2 plants, I'll leave it be. Sometimes it will even resolve itself through the ecosystem. Something that eats the aphids, like ladybugs or lacewings, will come in and eat them, or with the aphids being so many of them, they'll get a fungus or disease that kills them off. And if I have a major pest problem and it doesn't resolve itself on its own, I'll do things like maybe buy ladybugs and release them and they'll come eat the aphids, or there's a soap that I can spray it with that will kill them off. So these are our winter carrots. I planted the seeds in the early fall, and they've been growing here in the greenhouse all winter. I've been picking them. The nice thing about the winter carrots is the cold weather makes them really sweet. Plants will actually produce sugars as a natural antifreeze to keep them from freezing, and it makes them just so delicious. I love the winter carrots. So here we have some parsley, again planted in the fall. I was able to pick it through most of the late fall and winter. It was really popular around Thanksgiving. Everyone was buying parsley to put in their stuffing and use for their Thanksgiving meals. And it is a little bit more sensitive to the cold than some of our other crops here. So you can see there's some brown leaves that got hit by the frost. But the plants themselves are still alive. I think once the weather warms up in the spring, they'll start putting out new leaves again, and we'll have more parsley to harvest. Stuff in here during the winter, it doesn't do a lot of growing. I actually grow it in the early fall, and then the daylight hours get so short, the plants can't grow bigger. It's like a giant refrigerator in here. They stay alive, they stay fresh, but they don't grow. Pretty soon, as the daylight hours increase enough again, everything's going to start growing and taking off. And then when I'm all done cutting leaves from this parsley, it actually has another part of this plant that you can harvest. This is a root parsley, and you can harvest the root like a carrot to eat, but I'll need to go get a shovel to dig one out. I think it has a pretty deep root, but you can pull one up. There's a long white root like a carrot, and it tastes like a parsley flavored carrot. It's really nice. It's very interesting in salads, and it's something that I enjoy growing because you don't really see it a lot in the grocery store or even at the farmers markets from other farmers, and it's just something that's really fun. And that's the root from the root parsley. So you get 2 crops out of this plant. You get the nice parsley leaves, and when you're tired of picking parsley leaves, you can pull it up and have this delicious parsley root to eat. So these are one of our more unique crops. They're Birdhouse Gourds, and they get planted in May. They grow all summer, and then they take about 6 months to dry out. So these just recently got dry enough that we could scrub them, clean them up. So they come out of the field looking like this, and there's all this skin on them that needs to be just scrubbed off with some steel wool. So then you get this, and next step is going to be drill a hole in it for the birds to come in and out. Drill a couple holes here so you can hang it. I'm definitely going to keep a few and hang them up around the farm. Birds are great to have in your organic garden. They'll come and they eat the bugs, and it's nice to give them a home so they can make their nest, raise their babies, and we're going to sell a lot of these as birdhouses as well. Okay, so here we're making one of my favorite dishes to use local, fresh ingredients from the farm with. It's sauteed kale, and I'm also incorporating some carrots and the parsley root. So I'm just going to chop up the parsley root finely. You don't have to use parsley root, you can just use carrots. So we've got a little bit of parsley root. We've got a half cup of chopped carrots that I chopped earlier, and a third of a cup of chopped parsley, and a pound of kale. Might seem like a lot of kale, but it actually cooks down a lot, especially greenhouse kale. It's not being blown around in the wind, so it's really tender, but that also makes it shrivel up a lot. I'm also going to use some sea salt, some onion powder, garlic powder, and black pepper. A nice trick for preparing kale is you want to remove these tough stems. So you just take a small knife and cut along the stem and cut it out. And this can be for your compost or to feed your chickens. You can even cut it up and add it to salads for crunch. It just, the thick stem gets really tough when you cook it. So we'll take another stem out. Try to get as much of the good leafy part of the kale off as possible and not waste it. And then I'll just really coarsely chop it and add it to the rest of my kale, which is all prepped. Okay. So I have my pan on medium heat. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, probably just about a tablespoon here. I've been preheating this pan so the olive oil is nice and hot and it's bubbling a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add my carrots and my parsley root. And just toss them so that they're all coated in the oil. Add just a little bit of sea salt, sprinkle it in. And the same for the black pepper. The garlic and onion powder I'll add later, you don't want to burn them. And you can also use minced fresh garlic and onion too if you have that. So we're just going to saute these, stirring them occasionally for a few minutes until they start to get a little bit soft and have a little bit of a golden brown color to them around the edges. The carrots add a nice sweetness to the dish, and you can use other root vegetables you might have, like radishes or beets or celery. You can also make this dish with other greens instead of kale, like you can use spinach or Swiss chard or turnip greens, radish greens, whatever you have. Now that our carrots have been cooking for a little bit, we're going to go ahead and add the kale. And it seems like a lot, but it will cook down. If you can't add it all at first, you can let it cook down some and then add the rest. And I'm going to add the parsley. and some garlic powder. And some onion powder. And you can substitute your favorite fresh herb for the parsley. And with fresh herbs, it's nice to add them at the end, towards the end. I didn't add them with the carrots. If they cook too much, they can get bitter. If I could only grow one thing, I'd probably, if I only had a small space to grow in, I would probably grow just a little patch of fresh herbs, because the flavor is so much more strong when they're really fresh picked for your herbs. It really makes a big difference. Everything, I think, tastes better when it's fresh, so it's nice to get things locally grown from your local farms, but fresh herbs especially are amazing. And you can see that the kale is starting to cook down, and I'm stirring it to make sure that it all gets towards the heat, nothing gets overcooked or stays raw. So yeah, don't feel afraid to go to your farmer's market or your local farm and substitute whatever roots and greens and fresh herbs that they have there that's in season. You can make this with, whatever kind of vegetables you have or that you like. But this is a really nice way to prepare kale. And kale is something you can get. It's one of the few vegetables you can get pretty much year-round in our climate here in New England. So the kale has cooked down. It still has a nice vibrant green to it, but it's wilted down, shrunk down, so we know it's ready. And this is a really nice side dish to serve with any meal. And sometimes I'll even add eggs to this and have scrambled eggs with kale, and that can be like a healthy way to start your day. It can be a healthy side for your lunch or dinner. So here's our winter vegetables, kale and carrots with some fresh parsley for the seasoning and a little bit of the parsley root. Here we have some freshly cooked kale. Kale is pretty easy to grow, so don't be afraid to go ahead and try planting some of your own. It's also really great to cook with. It has calcium and other great nutrients in it for you. So please hope you enjoy growing and cooking with some fresh kale.